and welcome to the Love How Deep podcast with Brian and Heather Mayer. Our purpose is to equip married couples like you with resources that rely on the transformative power of God's Word to strengthen your relationship. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Love How Deep podcast. We hope that you continue to listen. We hope that the things that you're hearing really just does a lot to strengthen your marriage. And we hope that you continue to use God's Word as a foundation of your marriage. Today, we're going to talk about personalities. We hope you have one. We know you have a personality. We know you do. And I mean, those are the things that we're drawn to when we meet a person. You know, when you met your spouse, you were dating, it was their personality that you fell in love with. And, but sometimes those cute things can just become those annoying things that start to drive a wedge in your marriage. And so, you know, we do have different personalities, but how can we celebrate that? How can we learn more about each other through understanding each other? You know, what kind of things can we learn about? And I'm like rambling and saying the same thing over and over again. And I'm just like, yeah.
That's all right. That's, I think you and I are a lot alike in that regard, that I tend to like to say the same thing a few times just to make my point, but you're right.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get that maybe I've said enough, but
maybe so.
And so
yeah, but to get back on track, so we're going to talk about just navigating the personality differences that you have in your marriage. And because I think that understanding how your spouse is made to in the core, I guess, in their personalities, it can deepen your love. It can allow you to show more grace and mercy towards that other person that you care so much for. So let's dive on in.
Right. And we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves. So we're going to put ourselves out there before we talk a little bit about you. So with personality, every time you and I take a personality test, we tend to score very similarly, which I find kind of interesting.
We do. I mean, they say opposites attract, but
right.
I think in our case, like, there's so many ways that we're too similar.
Right. And one, right. And so one of those that we've taken before, you may have heard of this one, is called the Myers-Briggs assessment. And there's 16 different personality types. It assesses you in 4 different areas, and there's 2 possibilities in each area. So the chances, I don't know what the chances are that you are with someone that is exactly your personality type. I would imagine it's pretty low, but somehow, some way, that happened with both of us. We are both ISFJs,
right?
Which means that we are introverts. You know, and maybe there's a spectrum with that. We're probably not completely
spectrum there.
Yeah, I think we're maybe a little bit more toward the middle.
I might be more in the middle than you. I'm considered an extroverted introvert because I'm like right there on the line. So that totally comes to play, you know, out to play, I guess, when we talk about like getting together with people or whatever. It's like the introvert in Brian's like, no. And the extrovert in me is like, let's go.
Right.
So yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a difference there, but yes, but both introverts.
Yeah. And then I don't know, I guess we can talk about each letter, but the S, you can either be, I want to say sensing, or I think intuition is how you take in information. And so you and I do a better job when it's concrete and we have, information to take hold of, where I believe the other side of it is more of like seeing imagination and the possibilities and things like that. And we're both typically similar with that. And then the F is for feeling, and you can either be a feeler or a thinker, I believe. And so feelers are a little bit more concerned about people and their feelings. Thinkers are more concerned with logic. And then you get to the last one, we're both J, which is called judging. And that doesn't mean that we judge people. It typically just means that we like an orderly life. Where the other letter, and I'm forgetting what it is on the other end of that, is more somebody that likes spontaneity. So that is the Myers-Briggs, and we are exactly the same on that one. Anything else you want to say about that?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's go to what's another personality test that we are very similar on?
The Enneagram.
Yes.
So that's a pretty good, I don't know, personality assessment right there with
Mhm.
tons of questions, but just incredible information. And I'm not
Mhm.
sure how many types there are. There are
There's
10, maybe
nine,
nine.
nine
Okay.
types.
Yeah. So I am what is my number
You're
one?
a
I'm a
number
number
nine.
nine,
Yes.
which is Peacemaker. And my second is a number six, which is Loyalist. Brian,
Yeah.
how about you?
My top two are exactly the same. They're
But
flipped.
they're flipped.
So they're flipped. So I'm a six loyalist at the top and nine peacemaker. And so, yeah, I mean, peacemaker is exactly what you think it means. It just, we want harmony, we want
We
peace.
do.
We don't like arguing, although you might disagree with that with me and think I like to push things, which we'll talk
We're
about in
going
a
to get
minute.
to that later.
Yeah. And a loyalist is obviously that makes sense too. It's somebody that's
Yes.
very loyal
Yes.
and sometimes doesn't like change and
Hmm.
likes the same. So yeah, we're exactly, well, I shouldn't say exactly. We're pretty close on that one as
Very
well.
close. Yeah.
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 And then we've also taken the Prepare Enrich Marriage Assessment. And that's an assessment that we give to premarital and married couples as well. And there's a part on there that looks at your personality. And there's several areas on that that we are exactly the same as well.
Right.
One of those is social. We're very similar. We're not completely identical, but
Mhm.
you know, I would say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, typically small groups of people, um, like when we like to go out, I prefer just to go out with one couple.
Right. Me too.
Like I'm not comfortable when, like at work, when I worked in the corporate world, we'd take somebody out for their birthday and there would be like 18 people. I
It's
just,
overwhelming.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Who are you going to have a conversation with? Who are you going to sit with? Oh my gosh. What are they talking about? Like, I
right.
don't know. To me, that's just overwhelming when it's
Yeah.
a very large group of people
Right.
versus a more intimate setting with just like one other couple or two couples, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. So I think socially we're generally
I
pretty
think so.
much the same.
Hmm.
Is there another way?
Yeah, change. Neither one of us really like change so much, and we struggle with that. And it takes both of us, I think, a long time to process through a potential change and what we might do. And I mean, honestly, like, yeah, it takes us a while to make decisions because those decisions often involve change. And it could be something as simple as purchasing a new couch. I mean, we have to, that's a change that's going to take place. And we both want it, but then it's like, when are we going to bite the bullet and go for it and do it, And then we have to go and look at all the options over and over and over and over again. Because why? Because it's some sort of a change that takes us a long time. And whether it's a good change or a bad change or whatever, um yeah, we just are not fans, I
Hmm.
guess. I don't know.
Right.
It's yes, we have
Yeah,
to warm up to new things, I guess.
exactly.
Yeah.
A third way in which we are pretty similar is around organization.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that a little bit more because I think we are both very organized people. Just we have different strengths in that way. Like I'll
Yes.
say, for example, for me, and then you can talk about yourself. I'm very organized when it comes to like finances and putting things on spreadsheets, and I'm very organized in my business, and I can kind of keep things straight when it comes to that. But there's other ways in which I probably fall down in organization, and that's probably where your strengths are.
I think so. Like
Yeah.
organizing where things need to live in our house.
Yeah.
Because, if it's not getting put back where it belongs, then he can't find it.
Mm.
And he's the one that didn't return it, or I can't find it, or whatever. Yeah, and then where he likes to organize our budget on a spreadsheet, I like to organize our vacations and do research and figure out where we're going to go, what we're going to do. Like that takes organization. And he's more like, let's just get there and we'll decide. I'm like, no. I'm a list maker, and I don't know. You do have some lists, but I think you have a lot of lists in a lot of different places. And so
Mhm.
yes, we both like organization. We just go about it very differently. And I think that we do balance each other out
Mhm.
there because we are different in that respect as well.
Yep, that's right. So those are some of our similarities.
Yeah.
Now we want to talk a little bit about differences, right?
Yes.
And I think, are you handling? Yeah, you're kicking that one off, right?
Yes. So so where you're different is where you end up like, I don't know, having a pitfall and with just not handling things the same way because you're just wired differently. And it didn't bother you when you were dating so much, but when you're now that you're married, that's where those differences become more glaring. And so yeah, that's what you have to kind of learn to navigate and understand more about each other. So as far as like family and friends, we talked about that we do like social time with people when we talked about our similarities, but I think that I place more importance in staying connected with family and friends, whether it's let's go on a trip to visit someone or let's get together and make plans with someone, that sort of thing. I definitely there's that draw for me to where I want to have that connection with other people. I need that. So yeah, Brian.
Yeah, when it comes to family and friends for me, yeah, just like you said, I don't probably take action on that as much. And we've talked about this a lot. A lot of this comes from our childhoods.
Hmm.
You were, your childhood was a much more connected family. You did things together.
Right.
It was always that you always were doing things together as a family unit, and you were visiting other family members a lot.
Yeah.
And when in my growing up, obviously divorced parents, so that presents a little bit of an isolation issue right there. But it just wasn't as much of a, I guess, something that was as important in my family growing up. So I think I kind of took that as I became an adult and sort of, I can, if I'm not careful, I can tend to isolate myself. So I actually have to be a little bit more proactive about that.
Right.
So yeah, that is family and friends. Another way in which we are different that I've discovered, and this is something we've had to work through, is in Love How Deep, what we're doing right now. We both seem to have a different uh, way in which that we work through things. I have noticed and learned with you here with me that I tend to go very fast and just want to get things done and let's just get it out there and we need to move on to the next thing and let's get on to the next thing and on to the next thing. And so I'm like, what is that? The tortoise and the hare
Yes.
analogy. I'm the hare,
Yes,
just,
you are.
yeah, trying to run out ahead of you. And then,
Yeah, I am more slow to the draw on it. I guess I take time to warm up to the new ideas because I mean we talked about change, right? So a new idea that Brian might have for Love How Deep or whatever. I'm more on the gas pedal. Nope, sorry, I'm on the brake pedal and he's on the gas pedal, and so we don't work at the same speeds. We don't jump to the new thing at the same speeds or whatever. But I value high quality work and maybe not as much quantity. So I think we're
yeah.
a little bit different there because Brian, I do feel like you want the quantity, you want to have all these different things, and I'm like, but I want it to be the best that it can be. So let's take our
Mhm.
time on it, and so yeah, we have to balance each other
Right.
out in that way. And I feel like recently I saw something, or maybe you told me, or did you hear something about like a car doesn't work unless it has a gas pedal and a brake pedal?
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
you
you need
gotta,
both.
you need both. And so in our marriage, you need a gas pedal and a
Right.
gas pedal pusher and a brake pedal pusher. And
Right.
so that's who we are.
That's right.
They can cause conflict, like it has with us a little bit, as I'm like, whoa, pulling back the reins, like slow down. And he's like, come on, let's go. And
Mm-hmm.
we're not really understanding each other and our point of views. And so um, we definitely have to, always keep that at the forefront of our mind of like, why is it that I want to slow down? And why is it that Brian wants to speed up? And
Hmm.
what is going to be the best there, the best thing to do? So
Right.
definitely takes a lot of prayer, I think, a lot of communication
Hmm.
to
Yep.
understand that
That's
about each
right.
other.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, without a gas pedal, you don't go anywhere. And without a
Yep.
brake, you will crash into somebody.
Crash and
So, yeah,
burn.
so they're both important. So another way in which we are different is in how we communicate and a lot of times how we resolve conflict.
Yeah.
And we've learned this over the many years. I think we've got this down. We kind of know in moments of calm exactly how we are with each other, but it's the moments when things start to spin a little bit that I still need to work on. But I will typically want to keep pushing a conversation and let's keep talking. And if I don't kind of feel like we're really completely on the same page, I'll just want to keep going with it and let's keep talking. And if it gets a little heated, that's okay. And that's not really
Yeah.
okay, but and
This
that's really
happens.
my style
Yeah. This
is
happens.
I push.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a
And then
different style.
I'm kind of left feeling like he really just wants me to come around to his side and isn't
Mhm.
respecting my thoughts and opinions.
Yeah.
Like it can, yes, that is, I mean, the way that you communicate and handle conflict resolution
Mhm.
absolutely can cause a wedge in your marriage. And so
Yeah.
that, like he said, that's something that we have to keep in mind where he wants to keep pushing to talk, to talk, to talk, talk, talk. And I'm like, we are beating a dead horse. We've already talked about it. I thought it was already resolved. I thought we were good. And I'm ready to stop the discussion and move on because we're just like in spin cycle. And I'm like, oh, it's making me a little bit crazy because we're just in spin cycle.
Yeah.
It's like, we've already said this. We've already said it.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure our
Yeah.
listeners can hear the frustration
Right.
that sets in
Yeah.
during times like this. So,
Right.
yeah.
And I think I just, for some reason, I think in my head, maybe this eighth go around, something magical will happen. And
No,
we'll have either one of us will have this epiphany and we'll be like, oh my gosh, okay, now I see it.
that makes
Okay.
sense. No,
But no, usually what happens is the opposite. We just are getting more and
shut
more,
down.
right. And we're
Shut
getting more and
down.
more upset with each other. And so it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So then you
So
just need to go for a run and I need to go chill out, read a book
yeah,
or something and just like, whoo, we just go
probably
back to
so.
your respective corners kind of a thing,
Probably
you
so.
know, and
Yeah.
then come back and kind of
Hmm.
look at things. Maybe we have to work at looking at things a little bit differently. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's exactly right. So, all right. So, enough about us, but we
yeah,
really wanted to talk to you a little bit about us just because we want you to know that you're not alone. You know, you may have some things that work together well and other things that are differences. So, we
right.
just wanted to let you know that we're real just like you are.
Right. Even
But,
though the thing that we do, the ministry that we do with marriages doesn't mean we have the perfect marriage.
mhm,
It's just all in how you navigate these
right.
differences and these arguments or conflict, like whatever happens, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so now we're going to talk a little bit about differences just in men and women in general. And obviously, God created us. And so he created us to be different,
Yes.
and we are different. And I think this is important to talk about because in society right now, in the age that we live in, it seems like a lot of people in our society are trying to push us to be very similar. And I won't get into all the details on that. I mean, you
No.
all know what's kind of
Yeah.
going on out there, but we're different. And that's what Heather and I believe. You know, we were created differently. And so there are a lot of differences that these are generalities that we're going to talk about. There may be cases in your situation where maybe something is flipped, but a lot of times these are probably things that you see. And so, uh, what was the first one
Right.
I was going to talk a little bit about? Are
Yeah.
you going to talk about that one?
Communication
Oh,
style.
yes, yes.
Right. So the way we communicate is very different. You know, women, we know we talk a lot. We have a lot to say. We have a lot of things going through our mind. We're very open about our feelings and emotions for the most part, you know. We're okay to share it and, you know, yeah. So that's just our communication style is to share and possibly overshare. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And then for us men, typically, we want to just get to the point, where are we at? Let's get to from point A to point B with as few words as possible. Potentially, men generally want to think about the issue or the task or the situation and not take into consideration the person that they're talking to. So, yeah, we sometimes we can be a little bit more blunt, a little bit more direct. Sometimes our volume can probably
Mhm.
be a little bit higher, a little bit, yeah, louder. So yeah, definitely differences there in general. The second one that we're going to talk about is empathy. And that kind of dovetails a little bit with communication. I will say, in general, men are not as empathetic. Again, when it comes to, if you, my wife, are sick, empathy would be like, oh, I'm really sorry that you're feeling sick. I know that's got to be tough for you. It's, again, we go to that more solution oriented, well, you know, did you try some chicken soup? Did you take some aspirin or, things like that? That's kind of the
Right.
way we met him.
Or if the wife comes home and she's had a really, really bad day and maybe the boss came down on her, you know, maybe she just wants to vent to you and wants you to say, I'm so sorry you had a bad day. But many times, what does the man do? goes to problem solving.
Hmm.
Very different.
Right.
Versus, us women, like we are definitely more in tune to each other's emotions. And
Mhm.
we just we are a little bit stronger, I think, with showing that empathy.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then the way that we cope with anything, our coping I can't speak. Our coping mechanisms are different. When problems arise, we want to run and share it with someone. We want to find that listening ear. We want to maybe get help. We want to stop and ask directions when we're lost. And we need that social support in our lives to help us deal with stress and problems.
Hmm. Yeah, and a lot of times for us men, we want to withdraw, we want to get away, we want to go play a video game, we want to go
Yeah.
for a run, we want to go play golf, or we want to read a book, or we want to watch a movie. And as you can hear, a lot of those activities are just, again, kind of withdrawing. And again, not saying anything we're talking about is necessarily a right or wrong, it's just a difference. I
Right.
mean, it can be unhealthy depending,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but so that is coping mechanisms. What emotional expression, I think, is the next one we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a lot of these seem to kind of relate and dovetail with each other, but generally, again, men, I think a lot of times want to suppress emotions. It's more about, well, I just don't want to feel that. I don't want to deal with that. And let me put it in a box and lock it up. And when somebody asks me how I'm feeling about something, my response might be, I don't know. I'm not sure, and then let's
Right.
talk about basketball,
Mm.
you know, and
Right.
then women.
Yeah, so we may laugh, cry, scream, or whatever more frequently and louder than the others because we just have a wide range of emotions, and
Mhm.
it's in us, like in our nature, to want to get to express these emotions in any way. Um, and you know, speaking of emotions, emotions weigh more heavily on decision making. So the way that we make our decisions, women, like our emotions are tied to something. They're tied to how we're going to make those decisions. How's it going to make us feel? It's
Mhm.
going to make us feel good or sad or whatever it is. Our decision making skills are absolutely affected by our emotions.
Yeah, and this makes me think about like buying a car, for example. And I don't necessarily know if this happened when we bought our car a couple of years ago. I think it probably did, but usually for females, again, it's more about the argument is like, honey, we need this car because this is going to be great. It's going to be enjoyable. We're going to have all this room, right? I'm
Yeah.
probably speaking for you. I don't know.
No, go ahead.
But I was going to say for us men, it's more about, well, what's the cost and how are we going to
Yeah.
pay for this? And is this the right thing to do right now?
And I'm going to need to like the color.
Yeah, see? So yeah,
Yeah.
it's where there's
Yes.
differences. Now, I will say for you and I think we both tend to care a little bit more about those things that we're talking about, but sometimes in some relationships it's very black and white.
Yeah.
The female might be more about just I just want to enjoy it and I want this to be a car that we all enjoy, and the male is thinking about how much is it going to cost. But again, for
Right.
you and I, it's a little bit different, I think, on that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is it my turn?
Yes.
Yeah, risk-taking behavior. Men generally can be a little bit more risky with what they want to do. I know when it comes to finances and like investing, I'm not a risky person, as in like I want to dump all of my money into Apple stock. But I do believe in having all of our money in stocks, which means that sometimes there will be years that we will lose money. And how do you
I
feel
don't
about
like
that?
that at
Yes.
all.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, because that's scary. And I mean, when we got married and sold my house, we put all that money into something, stocks, whatever, and the market crashed and we lost all my money. It's like, wait, what? And Brian is like, oh, but it's going to come back up. It's going to do its thing. This is naturally what happens. Ups and downs and ebbs and flows. And
Right.
but risk taking for women, we are typically more cautious about taking risks.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. Self-perception is another one I want to talk about. So, women, we are more self-critical. We are prone to having low self-esteems starting from, our childhood. And as a teenager, it's like you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, with how you look or how you dress or how you act or whatever. And we can be very critical of other people. We can be really, really critical of ourselves. We
Mhm.
care a lot about, I guess, our external beauty or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I will say with men, I think we are too. I mean, maybe not as much, but I think the one big difference in that is we typically don't vocalize it as much. And I think the reason for that is we want to look like we have it all together and we're strong and we're courageous and we're brave and we don't have any problems and we don't want to let people in. So I think that's a lot of times what happens with self-perception with us. Um, Friendship dynamics. We've already talked about this a little bit, I think, in our own relationship. But again, a lot of times men don't prioritize friendships, especially as we get older. I've noticed this about myself. When I was in my 20s, it was all about, yeah, let's go out and have fun and, hang out with all the guys. And then as you get older and you just get more tired and you just, ready to call it a night at 7 o'clock at night, you have to
Yeah.
be a little bit more proactive. And then for women in that regard,
Yeah, we really put high priority on emotional intimacy and those friendships that we have with other people. So,
mhm.
yep.
Yep.
And then leadership styles is another thing to talk about. Women, we may exhibit more collaborative and inclusive leadership styles.
Mhm.
We want to have other people's thoughts and their opinions and other people helping us kind of navigate some things, whatever that is, as a leader versus men. What are you more
Yeah,
prone
we
to?
are kind of more directive and we want to, kind of take the bull by the horns by ourselves and show that
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
strong and, that we can take care of this and we can make
Hmm.
decisions. And I know sometimes I tend to, I've noticed that in our relationship when it
Yep.
comes to making decisions sometimes and don't think I've done anything really big and not let you in. But if it's something small and I feel like we've already maybe talked about it, sometimes I'll go ahead and take care of it. So I don't think it's caused any problems with this. But yes, I
It hasn't,
notice.
but it definitely comes into play sometimes
Yeah.
where, I'm like, wait, we're going to do a podcast, but we've never done a podcast before with all these fancy microphones and all that kind of stuff. And where's the best place to set this up? We need to get someone to help. Guess what? We have friends that have podcasts. Can you please come over? We'll take you to dinner if you'll come over and help us figure
Mhm.
all these gadgets out.
Right.
Versus Brian's like, I got this. I watched YouTube videos. I know what we're doing, but things are still not working.
Hmm.
So it's time to ask for help. I
Right.
think, yeah. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Exactly. And then what? We got one more.
Yeah.
Response to success. Typically, men usually will attribute their successes to their abilities or their own efforts. But I will say that kind of depends on self-esteem and self-confidence. But I think the generality there is that men are more self-confident, which I think is where that comes from. But there can be men that don't feel that way. But I think in general, that's what we men are known for.
Right. And for women, we attribute the success to some external factor
Hmm.
or to good luck or whatever, and
Hmm.
rather than like it was in us to do it.
Hmm.
Like, so we're definitely kind of like, oh, no, it's because of her or him or because of this or that. So
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So definitely differences. Nothing really bad, but that's just some differences that
Mhm.
are pretty common to men and women.
For sure.
Hmm.
For sure. Well,
Yeah.
what
And
else we
so,
got?
yeah, so these differences, as we've kind of talked about, they can absolutely cause a rift in your marriage. And with that being like conflict, the way that you navigate your differences when you experience conflict and how frequently you're not getting along or fighting and that sort of thing. And how often do these things get resolved or do they get swept under the rug?
Mhm.
Isolation, the desire to not get into more arguments, can sometimes cause one or both people to just kind of back away from each other in the conversation. And then intimate moments which can cause decisions to not be made. So, yeah, so you tend to become isolated with each other because things are not getting resolved.
Mhm.
And that leads to resentment and bitterness. And, over long periods of time, bitterness is like a cancer in your marriage. And you're resenting each other. And you're like, why did I marry this person? Because, and all of this is coming from the fact that you are different and you're not celebrating those differences and balancing each other
Mhm.
out and showing that grace and love and mercy. and practicing good humility and forgiveness. So yeah, definitely have
Hmm.
some issues in your marriage can
Yeah,
arise from these things.
that's right.
Mhm.
So then from that, we want to talk a little bit about how to navigate these differences. And we've got hopefully some helpful tips here for you. The first one, pretty understandable, that communication and understanding are very important. And so what does that mean? It means, communicating with genuineness and openness and honesty, and always working to listen. I listened to a podcast episode the other day, and they were talking about how to be a good listener. And it really is like removing distractions and asking a lot of questions, not in an interrogating way, but just to help with, understand, like, where are you coming from on this issue, Heather? I want to know. I really, truly want to know. Not so I can attack you back, but so I can simply get an understanding of what is going on. And I think oh, we have a little issue here in the studio as we're recording this. It's funny, we're recording video here, and so occasionally we can make faces at each other, and so that's what's going on right now. So with that, yeah, actually, I guess to let you know, we are working on turning this into a video podcast. This won't happen with this episode, but it's something that we want to, yeah,
Oh gosh.
we want this to happen very soon. So we are working out the kinks, but you're going to still hear us on audio. So yeah, all right, go. What's the next one?
Oh my goodness. Compromise and flexibility. Are you able to compromise with each other? And because sometimes you both can't be right. Sometimes one of you does need to give in a little bit and say, that's okay. We're going to compromise. We can do it your way this time. And, if you're the one that's kind of giving in, the important thing here is that you're not left with this bitterness in your heart. You're saying, that's okay. I support you 100%. Let's do it. And you're all in to support your person through that uh or support your person. Is that what I said? Support your spouse.
That's what we say now. It's that you're my
You're my
person.
person.
I've heard that recently. Maybe that's gone away now,
I
but
don't know, but you want to support your spouse in that decision that you've made, and learning how to be flexible with each other. And, with decisions that you're making and how things are going to get done. It's just being flexible, instead of, rigid. It's this way. It has to be this way. It has to be this way. No, it really sometimes doesn't have to be that way. And it's okay if you make a change there.
yeah,
So,
that's good.
mhm.
A third thing is to make sure you are emotionally validating your spouse. And again, what that looks like is, when you're hearing emotion in the way your spouse is speaking, make sure to point that out. So if I can tell Heather that you are upset or sad about a situation maybe that was going on at work, it's good for me to point that out. And I might say something like, I know this is making you really sad, and I'm really sorry about that, and I can understand why you'd feel sad about that. It's just, focusing on the emotion. And I love to tell people, almost make it a game. Like, even if your spouse is not specifically saying an emotion, see if you can internally and mentally, uh, see if you can sort of gauge what the emotion might be, and then say it. And, say it with some wiggle room, as in, it sounds like you're sad right now. Is that right? And then, your spouse can say, no, it's not really sadness. It's more of whatever. Or they might say, yes, this is exactly what it is. So what that's doing is it's helping you understand better what's going on, but it also helps your spouse feel heard, which I think is very important. Now,
Yeah, really good.
one other quick thing I'll say about that is it doesn't mean that you're agreeing with the situation. Like, let's say, for example, Heather tells me, well, 4 days in a row, I came in late to work and the boss, screamed at me, and it made me really sad. Well, you first want to say, focus on the emotion. I understand why that would make you feel sad. No doubt about it. I wouldn't like to be yelled at my boss either. But hey, if is it okay for me to give you a little feedback, or to talk about the 4 days late? I mean, because that might be
That
what
might be a
the
problem.
problem is, So I'm not saying disregard what's going on, but start with the emotional part. So yeah, that's
Right.
emotional validation.
Right. Sometimes we do need to be willing to seek professional guidance. So, if if that means that you have a conversation with your spouse of like, hey, why don't we go get some help in this? Why don't we find a Christian counselor? Why don't we, you know, talk to our pastor?
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with getting the help that you need. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're falling apart. It means that you just want to better navigate some of these tricky situations. You want someone to help you develop some better communication skills or to resolve some conflict that you're having. And so, Brian and I, we had to do this when, um, I don't know, not early on in our marriage, but maybe within the first, I don't know, 6, 7 years.
Maybe.
We were
Yeah.
married 8, something like that. We needed to seek some help with some things that we were going through, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so many times we just feel like we've got this, and we don't want anyone to know that we're having problems. I think that's where pride sets in, and that becomes very, very, very dangerous. And so it's like as soon as you realize like we're really having some issues here, be that strong man or that strong woman to stand up and say, you know what, this is not going to get the best of us. We're going to go get the help that we need.
Mhm.
And so I highly encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
That's good. And then the final way to navigate a difference is to spend more quality time together and connect. And you and I were seeing a marriage coach for a few sessions, and it was more around just getting an understanding of how to coach professionally. This wasn't the situation you're talking about when you
It's
needed the help.
different.
But I'll never forget it. He said, I want you to go have a date night, and I want you to purposefully uh, say to each other, this is not a time where something's going to come up and you're going to get in a conflict and we're going to go. It's if anything like that comes up, you just say we're tabling it. This is not for this time. There's some whatever hot button issues you two have. You're not going to
We're
talk
not
about
talking
that.
about it on a date.
Like if
Yeah.
it's parenting or maybe it's finances for you, I don't know.
Mhm.
That are listening, that would be a time where you say none of this is going to be talked about. And when we went in, we did that. And then I don't know, did he ask us to take a photo or not? We took a
No,
photo of each other
yeah, we
and
were sitting in the at the restaurant on this in the booth on the same side with each other, and we took a picture and sent it to him, and we are like, we're doing our homework, we're on our date night, and yeah, but it was good, it was a lot of fun.
yeah. And so, yeah, it's just very important, I think, to the more positivity that you pour into your relationship, sometimes the negativity will lessen on its own. I mean, again, there's always
Right.
good things to do about the negativity and to address that and to make changes. But sometimes, again, when we're just doing things that we enjoy together, those good feelings happen, and then some of these other things will reduce.
Right.
So. I think we are at the end, right? I think we have covered everything that we wanted to cover. So we hope that this has been helpful to you about personality similarities and differences, and again, how to navigate those differences. Uh, we are super excited because this is episode number 25, and this is a big
Yeah.
one. So, and yeah, so I don't know about you, but I'm just so grateful
Me too.
that we've been
Me
doing
too.
this together and we're at number 25.
Me too. Yeah.
And I can't wait for 50 and 100. And I want
It's
to
gonna
just keep
happen.
going. Let's just keep doing this. And so, and we thank you for listening. One quick thing before we go, check out if you go to lovehowdeep.com/25, you'll get our show notes for today's episode. And we'll put a link in there to a free resource about communicating with each other. It's a little workbook that you can print out and utilize together, and it will help you. It gives you a lot of tips and hints on how to communicate better with each other.
Can I throw in something else that
Sure.
I'm going rogue? So could we also put a plug for the date nights on the website? There's several of them on there because we did talk about, maintaining that connection. And so this could be something that would be useful to you for maintaining your connection with each other and making that even stronger than it is.
Yes, I will put that on the show notes and you will see that as well. So great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we can't wait to see you next time. Take care until then.